blue rain that drowns green crystals. I am going to die.
You know, you really understood, basically, at some point, what goes on. You know, when I heard, I used to take my classes to night court because, you know, it was a lit class, and I used in New York City, and I used to say the first session would be in night court, and they would show up and say, "What are we doing in night court?" Whatever, and then we leaned back. I didn't say a word, and then when we left out, they understood how the judge dispense justice.
Okay, okay.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you have, the judge dispensing justice in here, you know, and all the other people, whatever. And the poet, who should also be dispensing justice, you know, is saying, "Hey, I give," you know, whatever. I mean, you know, the rest of these people that I thought that I really needed to write about, hey, you know, I need to just, you know, just back away. The hope, believe it or not, does come from you. There's something there in your, you know, in your gut, you know, in your feet, you know, in your head. But you still are an observer. You know, you can't make up your mind. Like a lot of people in America, you know, they voted for Reagan, although Reagan wasn't for them. It was an amazing thing. You vote against your own interests. I mean, I'm always amazed that you vote against your interests. You know, in other words, like, you literally vote for somebody and that person is not going to give you what you want, but you do it for one reason, and that is in terms of your money, your status, and your color. You know, and at the base of this is class and color still in this country.
We discussed that, the hierarchy, and how first and second man represent the top, Shigeko underneath them, and then underneath Shigeko is Carl, the black capitalist.
Yeah, you know, and there are people, you know, and you know, that, you know, really at some point in terms of Carl, you know, looking up, saying simply, you know, I really want to be like you, and you know it, you know, and but you're saying also, but you ain't gonna be like me. I know I teach English, but you ain't gonna be like me. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. You'll never be me. And that's an amazing statement here in America. You know, it's like Obama became president, and some people in America said, "God, how did that happen?" You know, it's an amazing moment in history. You know, and some of us who are sometimes observers of American history, because, you know, sometimes you have to be an observer, not always into it. But I remember when the Supreme Court Justice fed him the lines, and we were down there with Dr. Heights, whatever.
Okay, Dorothy Heights.
And we said, and you know, she owned this place, and we were like, and we said, it's the wrong line. Yeah. You know?
Okay, yeah. And then
he said it wrong, and Obama said it right. But the paper said Obama said it wrong because he said it. It's an amazing moment. And I said to Dr. Height, I said, it begins. You know, because that never, ever, 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 ever happened in history.
As in what begins?
You know, the anti against Obama. It began on his inauguration. Can you imagine? I have watched a lot of presidents say boom, 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 boom. So you kind of know what they're going to say, right? And we all sat there and we looked up and said, oh my God, this man fed the wrong line. It's like if you're an actor and someone feeds you the wrong, like if I were backstage feeding you the wrong line, but you know, I rehearsed this and that's not the line, and you go ahead and say what you're supposed to say. That's what happened. When he gives the first speech, State of the Union, a representative, a congressman stood up and said, you lie. You know, and I did an agitprop piece for my classes, right? You know, what do you do when someone says, when you're delivering a State of the Union, you're a liar, you lie? You know, what you heard was silence in there, whatever. But what do you do if you're a congressperson? Do you lower your eyes, you know, or do you go and say, escort them out, or do you say, shut up? You know, do you say your mama, you know, whatever, you know, and bring the humor back to, I mean, that's the amazing kind of thing that we can have here. And it's amazing. There's so much drama going on in this country.
What do you think, what would you like audiences, according to what you saw, to take away from this play?
Well, you know, I meant it as many layers. You know, I meant it for the very simple thing that one sees. You know, each person was loaded. You know, it's on purpose. You know, the poet, you know, Shigeko, you know, Carl, you know, the two people like this, you know what I mean? The one in charge, the underling, and the whole point is all underlings finally rebelled. I mean, that's a given, okay? Although you don't know that yet, but you know all underlings at some point would say, hey, I'm tired of this crap, whatever.
Rebel, I mean, 1971, this was the prison rebellion, the Attica prison rebellion, the year that George Jackson was murdered. I feel like this piece is a homage to them with the way you show how Carl rejects the system, the free market system.
Well, it's a pivotal play in terms of time. You know, you have to go back and look at it, and you might want to tell people, why don't you go and see what was happening in America in 1971, right, you know, period. You know, what was really going on here in this country. I mean, starting from, you know, the civil rights movement, whatever, in 71, all of a sudden you began to see black power happening, whatever. You know, when you say, hey, I don't need you, whatever, etc. The terrible thing about all of this, that it is zeroing in at a 1971, whatever. But the terrible thing is that it's relevant because we still haven't understood how much we really need each other. We don't have a clue still. I mean, you look at America right now, you know, you say, my God, you know, haven't we gotten it after all 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and 2000, right? That all of a sudden we are now, you know, having people who cannot get along, who do not agree, who will not push, you know, anything in that Congress, you know, if it's not going to reflect me, which means we the people are watching like this, saying, what are they doing? Because the country doesn't really, they don't care about we the people. So what do we the people do as a consequence? And that's the question at the end. You know, what is the meaning of the silence outside? Because before those young people started talking about Wall Street, only a few people were talking about the 1%. But all of a sudden, the young people did it, and everyone now in the vocabulary. Listen to even the
Occupy
comedians.
Wall Street.
Yeah, the comedians saying 1%. They didn't even know 1%, 2%, or 3%, or 4%. You know, whatever. But all of a sudden, you have that happening now, and it does take just a few noisemakers, because you know it came up like that, all of a sudden. Because why? Because these kids got out of school, had no bloody jobs. You know, I mean, you pay all that money for an education, and where are the jobs? And so at some point you got to look up, and unhappy enough, you point fingers, you know, like you're responsible. And of course they took it to Wall Street, you know, but you represent Wall Street on many levels, you know, period, you know, and you're either the CEO or the person, you know, the one that does the hatchet work for them, you know, whatever, etc. But the tragedy is that the writers, the poets sometimes, you know, refuse to even say that exists, you know, that any of that exists. A few are still saying it, right? You know, and the other tragedy too is that what we did to Japan, you know, I mean, we dropped a bomb on twice, you know, because at some point someone said we wanted to end the war. But everybody, if you go back and read history, the history books about what was going on, Japan was sending out signs left and right that we want to stop this war, you know, but they had done a bomb. Come on. They had made a bomb, and they said, we want to try it out. Can you imagine? You know, we need to try it out. And so we come to the point, what is this thing that we have become a people that invent things just for the sake of inventing, and that will destroy? In that moment, when that bomb was dropped, and a great movie, Hiroshima Mon Amour, was done, you know, about two people who are lovers, and on the backdrop, the screen, right, is a French movie, is what happened in Hiroshima, whatever. So everything that we do, every move that we make, walking on this earth, that there's, you know, the backdrop is, it never comes up, whatever, but the whole point of that we can destroy ourselves, we can destroy the earth, whatever. And if we don't get this thing together as human beings, we would definitely do that, you know. So the card game, Dirty Hearts, and the Queen of Spades, but I was reading from it when the book came out. this guy in the South, I don't know if it was Mississippi or Georgia, told me about the history of the Queen of Spades,
okay.
rather. And he was saying that was one of the derogatory things, how they spoke about black women. So nobody in their right mind wanted the Queen of Spades, right? Because it was that, and I didn't even know that history, you know, whatever, and I thanked him for it. When that card game originated, you know, that was part of the you know, the history of it, is that it was not the Queen of Hearts or the Queen of Diamonds, right? You know, or the Queen of Clubs, it's Queen of Spades, you know, and Spades, you know, a
Spades
name.
mean black.
Yeah, so it's Queen of Spades. Nobody wanted to deal with this black woman at all. Even Carl didn't want to deal with that black woman, whatever. You know, Carl is, oh, Queen of Spades, well, is that great? No, it's a black woman. But Carl said, not me. You know, why me again? But the other thing is that, you know, we have, we got some, young people have got so much work to do because we, your elders, have left this one, you know, it's a mess. And people are asking you to clean it up. And it's a hard clean, by the way. It's a hard sell and a hard clean. But I thank you for tackling it. And I thank you for, I'm going to try to get back in from Atlanta to maybe get here for the end of it. I'm hoping, you know, I don't know how they have me, schedule me, you know, leaving out of Atlanta. But I'd like to come in and talk, you know, talk with you on stage with, you know, with the audience. You know, this was done, I can't think of the other guy's name, he's a playwright, but this was a bunch of plays that they put in an anthology called Breakout, I think it was, called Breakout. And it was plays, I should have brought it, plays that talked about social issues in a different way. And they were all like 30-minute kinds of, you know, that kind of thing, whatever, et cetera. And it was controversial, by the way, at the time, but he was a professor who was at San Francisco State with me, and he finally went to Brown because it got to be raucous out there in San Francisco with Reagan as governor and as Haiku, who became the president of San Francisco State, where all the uproar, you know, came about out there. You know, Haiku, when the young people challenged that whole educational system, Haiku stood up and said, and went to the newspaper, he said, I call on my people to help me against all these militants on this campus. And a spokesperson for the Japanese community said, we didn't know Professor Haiku identified. It was an amazing moment, because if you know Haiku, he didn't. I mean, he was completely, you know, I am this entity. And Reagan rewarded him as senator. You have to remember, he became a senator, you know, whatever. And but every time I think of that period, and I think of Chieko, I think of rushing into a class and someone handed me something and said, Sonia, this is about concentration camps. And I said, concentration camps, what it means that we think that Japanese were put in account, because as we were unearthing a lot of things, beginning a new program, Black Studies, everything came up. The concentration camps in Europe and Germany that nobody wanted to talk about, you know, it resurfaced and we were able to talk about it. The Chinese men building the railroads, and no one said they did that, and they were exploding in reds. I mean, all of that came up. At that same time, a gay movement was coming, you know, up, arising there in San Francisco. And I went into my class, I had 2 Japanese American students, and I held it up, and I said, do you know anything about this? I said, we think that Japanese were put in concentration camps, and they both got pissed at me. That's what happens when you teach. You're going to defend your thesis, okay? Yes. Because you know, sometimes you think, let me back off. You know, what did I just say? You know, but I put it on my desk and I continue to teach the class. At the end of the class, we always join hands and do a circle. And I reached for one of the hands, and you know how people don't want to, it's a limp hand. But on the way out, I said, would you take this home with you and just ask? And they took that piece of paper home and asked their parents, and their parents told them an amazing story that one day they woke up and on the post is that said report, Japanese, report to blah, 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 blah. They were given, I mean, at most a little more than 24 hours or to a week to gather up their stuff to sell their property, mind you, and report. And they lost. And these were citizens who were, fantastically good citizens, and they lost property, and they went to concentration camps. They came back into class on a Tuesday. That was a Thursday, and they apologized. They said they had lived with their parents all those years, and it had never, ever been discussed, and they kept it quiet, that kind of secret, whatever. A wonderful ending to the story is I was doing a reading in Seattle, and a huge crowd of people, and I saw someone walking towards me down the aisles. And you know how you teach long enough, you teach 40 years, people, in this thing called academia, and there was some memory, she looked familiar, whatever. And she came up on stage, and she ran across stage, and she grabbed me, and she said, "Professor Sanchez, did you see my documentary that I did on my people who were incarcerated in concentration camps?" And I said, "God, that was you." There were a couple made, whatever, etc. And that's the joy of teaching. When you teach, when you write, that you can perhaps inspire someone.
And that's the hope of this play, that it will get people to learn about what happened and why that relationship between First Man and Shigeko exists. We did an exercise last week, and we had the cast members touch each other and say lines. And I was moved. Probably the interaction that touched me the most was Shigeko and Second Man. And Shigeko, could you share what made touching Second Man so hard when you were saying, because they just said their lines to each other?
Because I think Shigeko is trying to see the good side of the world and trying to make peace, because that's the mission who had experienced a bomb.
Exactly.
So that's I saw a couple of interviews, and then people saying, even though it makes people uncomfortable, have to tell this story. So I tried to convince him to see the world, we can make the world better for next generation. But he cannot believe me. He tried to see the negative side. He never agreed with me. So I kind of lost the exercise. So that's we had the exercise the other day.
They were really into their characters. It was rather powerful.
I guess with the bomb like that, it should make you become a person for peace, right? Unhappily enough, it doesn't always happen like that, if you understand what I'm saying, But I got that, that you were the peacemaker up there,
Not until I started researching for this piece, and I was watching the interviews who came here after the big bomb. Even though they had terrible experience, they couldn't stay Hiroshima because they have memories. They're hearing the sound all the time. So they couldn't stay at the place, and they need to go somewhere. But only America is a place acceptable for them to work. So they came here, but they couldn't tell. They have to be quiet because that time is America, we end the war. So Japanese people couldn't tell the story. Just recently, people started talk about the issue. I did not know that. I didn't have that education that much.
That is amazing. And just recently in doing some workshops, I forgot where I was, in Colorado, that place that the Beat started up, that school that they started many years ago, the Beat Generation, they started, Jack and
Jack and Jill?
Yeah, no, I mean Jack Kerouac and
Kerouac.
And oh God, I am so tired.
Aspen
people.
Institute?
Yeah, not Aspen. Anyway, it's a place where they had classes and whatever, etc. I lost that thought. I was trying to remember. I had a 4-hour interview with a brother from Japan, doing a long thing on me and my use of the haiku. that I'm really, my brain is like,
That's
I keep saying you really are. But it was about, the concentration camps. One of the young women in that workshop up there brought me a book. One of the things that saved many of the Japanese people in the concentration camps, they started writing haiku. They'd never written haiku. And they started to write, and there was a collection of haiku that came out of the concentration camps.
The Japanese poem.
Yeah, the haiku.
575.
Right, yeah. That's how we interpret it, but that's not how they interpret it, right? But that's our response to it, right? But they start, and they said that it saved them. It saved them, whatever. Because the joy of the haiku is that there's no fact, there's no greed, there's no hatred, there's nothing in. And so what you halfway find, I'm just saying it to you, is that you, as a result of the scarred face, have moved to almost a haiku way of life. You say only those things that will reflect peace, right? You say only those things that will make people peaceful and get along, whatever. And so one of the ways that, since I've been writing the haiku for many years, the thing that I've tried to do is to talk about having a haiku way of life. So in this city we're doing the peace mural. We're doing a peace mural, here.
Love.
That says, what is the title? Peace is a haiku? I have no idea at some point. I mean, I can't even remember. Oh, Peace is a haiku song.
Okay.
And we've asked, and we teach the children how to write the haiku. And once you do that, you help bring a lot of quiet to classrooms, whatever, etc. Believe me, I kid you not. It's amazing.
You do use brain a lot. It's a very tricky style.
Yeah.
You have to use 575 or 57577.
That's the tanka. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
tanka 575 haiku.
Mhm.
Yes. And you have to use the seasonal words, or you have to use if there's rules.
Mhm.
Like for kids, it's really tricky to make.
But they write some of the most interesting and most beautiful haiku of the planet Earth because they come to it with such innocence, right? And they come to it, and truth, and very much connected to the earth in spite of themselves, even being in urban cities, And once you do exercises with them, teach them how to breathe instead of from here and from here and from here, you get a whole nother group of people. And you also tell them that it doesn't have to be 17 syllables, But what it does have to be is the first line has to be short, and the middle one just a little bit long, and the third one, short. And what you do want is one breath. So once you teach them how to breathe, right? Then you bring them under control, whatever, and turn to the haiku because Japanese, we couldn't count, the sounds, whatever, etc. So therefore, we came close to what they were doing by saying 575. The joy is that we have advanced beyond just that, the 17 syllables,
You said that Shigeko is based on the name of an actual Hiroshima maiden you knew.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if Carl's character, Carl Lanson and Company, was that based on any real life person?
Well, Carl, I knew a lot of Carls. I mean, a lot of Carls exist today, The problem is that you just go so far and no further, even some place like Motown, where they made all
Very
that money,
gory.
whatever. But the word is that the mob came in and said, you can only make just so much money. Can you imagine? I mean, you cannot be out and out the rotten capitalist, if you know what I mean. You can only just be so much. We let you make just so much. Point in case, I don't know if you remember that a man by the name of Bill Cosby saved NBC. He saved it with a show, one show. NBC was just like in the pits. Nobody watched NBC because they had nothing good on. All of a sudden, along comes Bill Cosby with, what was the name of the show?
The Cosby Show.
The Cosby Show. Everybody and their mother. I watched it. We all, at 8 o'clock on Thursday nights, You know, you stopped everything and you watched the Cosby Show, and money poured in. I mean, it was amazing. And then they did another show right behind it. So, million. I'm very serious about this because I know for a fact that happened. But this man said finally, whoa, I'm going to go off the air because I've been on there 7 years, and what more can you say? And it's true, you do a show. And he said, I'm going to buy NBC. I don't know if y'all remember that. And there was this thing like, no, you're not. Mm-hmm. And he didn't come saying, I'm going to buy NBC with $20, right? I mean, he had people who had made money. I'm going to buy NBC. And America said, you are not going to buy NBC. You know, so I didn't put you on NBC, but I put you on that level, you know, whatever. That's you, whatever. And you're saying, you won't be me ever. Margaret Walker, a great novelist from Mississippi, had talked about two important things. That was, in quotes, slavery, you know, and people coming out of slavery. And some people coming out of slavery, what happened to the great plantations. And the blacks who had learned how to navigate, you know, pain, beatings, you know, death, whatever, you know, began to navigate and take care of Missy Selena, you know, because many people broke down. They could not understand why they weren't in power anymore. And Margaret Walker's ancestors, you know, she's writing about her ancestors, literally took control and made sure that this woman ate, that she, you know, she lived, whatever, etc. But this woman says, Lordy, Lord, I can never, ever in my life, ever imagine someone like you people, you know, ever being, you know, me, you know, like me, whatever. And that's an amazing, amazing statement, whatever. But I have great hope in young people. I taught so many young people for so many years that they get to know each other in my class, you know what I mean, whatever, etc. And then they would never say that. You know, many of them would never say that because they would never think that. Some will, right? You know, whatever. Will. Come on, you know, this is real. This is no rose-colored bottle, you know, whatever here. But the point is that most don't, whatever. And many don't. But that's the reality there, that because they couldn't envision, you know, someone being like them, whatever, you know. But we are so completely bound. Other people come to this country and they used to say in my classroom, why is the conversation only about black and white? And this is in a lit class, African American lit, and you say, well, you know, we haven't gotten it straight yet among us, you know. And the sister was Korean, so because I want to get in this conversation, you can get in it, but you know, but until the blacks and the whites really at some point spit it out, and let it get there, and then pour some clean water over, you know, we don't progress. That's what I told them in the notes that I gave them. I told them about the origin of whiteness and how it's an idea that began in Virginia, and how the white worker, as long as he's threatened, I quoted Hubert Harrison, who influenced Garvey, who I know you look up to, and you visited his wife in Jamaica, how he basically said, as long as the white worker believes that the black man is his enemy, racism will always be a problem. But that's how the 1% rule. Because if I don't know if you've ever had any African American lit classes or even history classes, right? Or if you ever read Du Bois, you know, Souls of Black Folk or Black Reconstruction. In America, when you had whites brought here and they were chattels, you know, right? Indentured servants. Indentured servants. And then you had the blacks, and some were freed, whatever. You know what they did? They looked at themselves as workers. They were comrades. And the first so-called, they call it rise, but they weren't rise. The first uprisings happened with black and whites who were poor. Isn't that amazing? Bacon's Rebellion. And how do you control that? Well, finally you look at someone and say, look, you know, that can't happen here. Because if that had happened, you would not have had 1%. Well, you know, because they understood we are in this strange land. We are all under the thumbs of these people. What do we do? And they did uprisings, whatever. It was all about economics, people. all about economics. That was an amazing moment. But what do? You come and you say to, hey. Well, I understand you two coming together. You know, that's nice. But don't you know you're white? Don't you know you're better than that? That's a slave, a past slave, you know. That, as someone just called Obama, that's a monkey. You know. And it's that. So what I ask for my students, we do exercises to expel that history and herstory that we have, you know. And some of the students say, I should just go home and tell my father off because he's a racist. I said, no, you go home and live with your father and teach him how to be human. I said, my generation went and told our fathers off like you boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? Didn't change anything. But what you do is you go and live among people.
Live.
And you say, hey, and as one of my students said, I used to go home to Oshkosh, Pennsylvania, and I get in there and I sit and listen to all the dribbles she said that my parents talk, you know, like they see somebody black on television, and he said, see, that's why we don't want them here, right? She said she'd get up and go out with her friends and get drunk, you know, and then when the holiday was over, she said, well, bye, Dad, you know, bye, Mom, and she'd come back to Temple. I said, let's do an exercise. When you go home, don't leave. Stay with your parents the whole time. And they said, oh my God, you're kidding, Sonia. I said, no, stay with them, whatever. And so there they were at the dinner tables in Oshkosh, Pennsylvania, and Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Oshkosh, whatever, etc. And long dinner table and the little table for the children on the side. And then the TV is playing. And then the newscast came in and said, well, today this guy pulled the necklace off, and they always showed the picture of this black guy, and the father said, that's why we don't want that kind around here. And she looked up and she said, well, you know, he looks like John, looks like Carl, who's in my class, and Carl is the brightest thing in the class, you know. He knows more than all of us. He puts us all to shame by his information. There's silence. The kids, however, look up like, whoa, what is going on here, whatever. And she said she stayed, and every time something came up, she talked about it. They had a discussion. They was quiet, you know, and the kids would, oh, wow, this is more exciting than, you know, TV, because they know, kids always know that something's happening. What I'm saying is that when her father drove her to the place where she got her train or her bus, you know, back to Philadelphia, he said, well, I don't know, you know, what you're doing there, but you should, it was nice having you around, even though some of your ideas are a little different from ours. That's what you have to do. We have to struggle with our parents, you know, and struggle with people at work, and struggle with everybody, whatever. Because if we don't struggle, right, you know, we ain't gonna make it. We ain't gonna make it. No, it's not just progress. We ain't gonna make it. This earth is gonna say, people, you are the strangest human beings ever produced, right? You know, and it's really saying, you leave debris in outer space. We've done that. We polluted outer space. We pollute the earth. We pollute each other's bodies. We pollute, you know, good thoughts, whatever. I think at some point I need to pollute you and get rid of you. I mean, and it's not by chance that, you know, it says simply, you know, you're going to get yourselves killed anyway, because within about 15 years, if you don't stop polluting the earth, we can't go back. It's going to be too late. What do? This earth says, I will swallow you whole, and willing to wait another billion years until a new species. You know that whole scientific thing, although if I were talking to some people in the South, they wouldn't believe it, that's how life begins. Until that process, that long process of people, of things coming out of the sea. Can you imagine, you know, evolving to us, to you and me, whatever, etc. But the earth says, I will not be destroyed by you. You know, that's what it's saying. That's what all this is about. I will not be destroyed by you. You know, you so-called human beings, whatever. So, you know, I'm trying to do with this play is just talk about, you know, everyone's saying where they come from, you know, and where we really going to go to with this, you know, how we really going to, just in this insular little game called Dirty Hearts with the Queen of Spades, you know, whatever, you know, if we can't manage this, how can we manage all that outside, whatever? And maybe we need to look at that, you know, and see what that's about. I hope that made some sense, and I hope it helps a little bit.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
No, it's just really great. I thank you. I thank anyone for getting up on stage and memorizing and acting. I'm always